And I am with the guest of today's podcast, Gary Boomershine from Northern California. What's going on, Gary?
Brett, it's awesome, man. I can tell you, I've been excited about this for a couple of weeks that we started the planning for this podcast. I was a guest last year, and I can tell you after doing probably 200 episodes and interviews on other people's podcasts, yours has always been the favorite. And I listen to everything that you put out, probably just because it's so real. It's so real and so timely and raw, and we get into the real issues that real estate investors in real life go through, right, as entrepreneurs on our journey. And I just love sharing I've learned, some of the
I'm going to listen to your other 200 episodes of other shows that you were on. And you probably said the exact same thing. Like, you're my favorite host. I'm just kidding. No, thanks, man. Yeah. I really, really appreciate that. I've been looking forward to this episode too. It's always just good to see you again. I know we kind of run in the same circles, and love hearing your wisdom. I think you're a man of faith. You're a man that loves to just put his vulnerability out there and realness, and I love that. Actually, it's just a fit for this show, and that's why we have you on the Brett Snodgrass podcast today. But before we get in, I got a lot of questions just talking about a lot of personal things. I know you've been an entrepreneur for many, many years. You actually created realestateinvestor.com, I believe, in 2005, which is an amazing company, and you help real estate investors all over the nation, possibly all over the world, take a lot of the heavy lifting off the day-to-day operations, and you help people like myself do what we do best, think of ideas and all that. But let's just talk about that, realestateinvestor.com. What is that?
Yeah. At the end of the day, as real estate investors, or frankly even hybrid agents, because there's a huge market now for hybrid agents that are actually not only taking down listings but also making cash offers and building their own portfolio and wholesaling. But at the end of the day, if you don't have deal flow and you're not in front of sellers and talking to sellers and making offers and closing deals, there's no business. So what I found is I'm really great in front of sellers, but how do I get in front of them? And so I built something back in 2005 with a small team for myself, and it just kind of expanded. So realestateinvestor.com, it's really not a software per se, it's a solution. At the end of the day, how do we get in front of the right seller at the right time? And so we're the largest marketer. I ended up merging the business about a year and a half ago so that we've got a CRM. It's proprietary. I think it's the best follow-up system in the business for getting in front of sellers and doing all the follow-up, but also the services. So I've got a large team. So instead of people having to hire and manage and train in terms of talking to sellers and qualifying and doing all the direct mail and outbound text messaging and cold calling, people can come to us and say, hey, you guys are experts. Can you do it for me? So I've got software and then done for you services for ultimately getting in front of motivated sellers. And we're the largest marketer. I just pulled the numbers. We've done over 87 million pieces of direct mail. We've done over 6.5 million outbound phone calls, live calls with sellers, cold calling. And then the more important part is the follow-up, because you got to generate the lead, but then you got to follow up and qualify and screen with the right words at the right time. And so we have, our busy professionals want to be in front of sellers. If they're wholesaling and they're buying houses or they're fix and flip, it's like everybody gets stuck in the muck trying to learn marketing. It's, at the end of the day, it's a $10 an hour type of, I always tell everybody, if you're a CEO and you're doing $10 an hour work, you're going to have a $10 bank account. So you want to not only leverage other people's money, you want to leverage other people's time, leverage other people's experience and resources. And so people come to us because they get it and they're like, hey, I value marketing and I value somebody doing all that follow-up because it's a return on investment. And so they'll come to us and say, put me in front of 10 sellers, get me 10 houses a month. And then we'll put together a budget and then we'll do it for them. And that's what realestateinvestor.com is. I'll give everybody at the end of the show a bunch of free resources as a gift, because I know we're going to talk about personal stuff. And I put some things just for your audience that are my personal gifts, and I'll allow you to put in the show notes. But yeah, check us out if you're struggling getting in front of sellers and all the what I consider brain damage and minutia of marketing. and direct mail and follow up and all the, text message sequences. Just you can offload it to us. We do it better, faster, cheaper than anybody else. And that's,
I appreciate,
and we're a humble company.
I love it. I love it. I appreciate that, Gary. Well, number one, I talk a lot about freedom and scaling your business and scaling it to freedom. So I think that you take care of a lot of that, because when you want to scale a business, number one, you got to have the right marketing, which you guys take care of. CRM system is huge, keeping your leads organized and your notes on the leads, keeping all of that, the systems, plus it can help you follow up with leads. Services, right? So you got to hire this team. Well, you guys already take care of a lot of that. So I did love it. So guys, check out realestateinvestor.com. The free gift, Gary, let's just go ahead and talk about that real quick. What is that?
Yeah, so I'll give everybody a phone number. You can text message this phone number. You'll actually see how our system works on the follow-up too. But it'll give you a link to some of my best resources. I actually have a presentation I did right at the beginning of COVID. It was actually in the weekend of COVID. I was in St. Louis before everybody got, everybody's freaking out. I was in front of 400 people on how I was the last speaker. I was either going to be front end, and Sean McCluskey said, I want you as the closer for an hour and a half on how to build a business that works for you. Because so many of us get into real estate with, focused on the how as opposed to the why. And the how is easy, how to wholesale, how to fix and flip, but it's really how to basically get really crystal clear on why real estate and what about real estate, what can real estate do for us, and how to, like, for instance, a lot of people are focused on doing 100 deals a year, 300 deals a year, or having $20 million in their bank account. And they do nothing but just create a massive job. I call it the JOB, just over broke. So getting really clear on what do you want real estate to do? And I think it's not about the money. I think it's about the time. So all of us got in this business. Everybody, I've coached thousands of people. And the one common theme for all of us is we're looking for financial freedom and lifestyle. And real estate can give us that vehicle if you are very clear on that. And I also think it's around passive income. So, there's passive income. A lot of people don't even realize there are just a few houses, 7 houses from being completely financially free. And in fact, I have a new book called The Freedom Code that's in the final stage of the editing. It's been on my bucket list for probably 15 years. But it is, people, if we have $10,000 to $20,000 a month of mailbox money, passive income coming in that exceed our expenses, we are financially free. So that's the focus. It's not that hard, but everybody's focused on the 100 deals, the 500 deals. And what I've seen is it's a trap, and very few people escape from it. And so my mission has been to share that. I'm passionate about it. And it's actually when you're crystal clear on your why. So I have that in there, some tools, and then a whole bunch of, like, if you wanted to go and really get good at marketing and closing, here's some of the tips. Here's out of 15 years, 87 million pieces of direct mail. Here is the secret sauce of what has made it work. And then if people can have them as, free gifts, and if then they need help and they want it done for them, they can just check out realestateinvestor.com or try it on their own, whichever. So I'll give you that right now.
Yeah.
Give you that number if you want. It's 925-320-0575. And just text Brett, because I want to know, there's actually some other things I'm going to put in there as well. So just put Brett in the text message, and you'll get a little text back with all the links. And if it helps any of you that are listening to this and it has an impact, I'd love for the feedback. Myself and the team actually thrive when we know that we're helping other people and making a measurable difference that impacts lives, especially right now, right? This is a time where we need to all come together when the world is changing upon us.
Yes, definitely. Well, we're going to put that in our description on the Brett Snodgrass channel on YouTube too, guys. So text Brett, and you'll get some free resources. Thanks so much for that, Gary. And check out Gary's book also, The Freedom Code. It sounds like cool. Is that out yet, Gary, or is that a future thing?
It's not. In fact, if you put Brett in the message, I'll make sure that the team actually gives everybody a free copy when it comes out for those people as my gift. I will say that I basically say, look, if you're looking for another book to wholesale or fix and flip, I'm not it. This is not the book for you. This is more strategy and big picture, but it's incredibly meaty. And the good news is there's 1,000 of those on the bookshelf. This is a book. I always say, hey, I'm not going to teach you how to catch the mouse. I'm going to teach you how to build the mouse trap to catch all the mice. And had a lot of really good feedback. It's definitely a faith-based book. It's about my journey, but how to be crystal clear. And people told me over and over again, like, this is a life changer, or you got to get this out. So Craig Fuhrer actually helped me write this. He was a ghostwriter. I know you probably know Craig.
Yeah.
Amazing individual on the East Coast. And he's like, it's been a journey together. We spent about the last 9 months working on it.
Awesome. Sounds good, Gary. Well, let's just kind of dive into that again. We talked about the realestateinvestor.com, amazing business, guys. So check that out, especially if you're in the real estate space, wholesaling, flipping, or buying, hold, whatever you're doing in the real estate, check out realestateinvestor.com. But Gary, when I think about you, I really think about, again, going back to, you mentioned this several times already, is about crystal clear, your why, your purpose. And I think over the several few years or even more than that, you've really become self-aware of who you are, what you want, and I think a lot of entrepreneurs miss that. So they don't even know where to start, right? So I want to talk to you about, what has that journey been like for you? Like, were you the same person you are today? Were you the same a decade ago? You know, what has it been like, this journey of kind of becoming more self-aware, coming up with your purpose, your mission? Let's just take us into that a little bit.
Yeah, it's actually through a lot of mistakes, first and foremost. Knowing what the formula is, yet breaking the rules. And I will also say, finding the best practices. So number one best practice, something that's completely changed my life, I recommend to everybody, especially if you're a business owner or entrepreneur, and that is get a CEO coach. I'm not talking about a coach that's just teaching you about real estate. I think that's the easy part. It's a coach that is coaching you on being a CEO, because most of us entrepreneurs, we are leading a business, and we're a business owner, a true real estate investor, just backing up. Most people call themselves real estate investors, but they're not. Okay, a real estate investor, according to Warren Buffett, is somebody that has money. They buy a physical asset that's called a property, right? Real property. It could be an apartment. And then they hold it for the long haul, right? And they take all the advantages of the real estate, including the tax advantages. There's an acronym called IDEAL of what that is. But that's a true real estate investor. If somebody's fixing and flipping, if they're doing wholesaling, it's a one-time transaction and it's a numbers game, right? That's a business owner. And every business needs a CEO and a business model. And that's why I always say, if you're the CEO, you've got to be crystal clear. Because imagine if you were a CEO of a pizza parlor and you're going to get into business and run a pizza parlor, right? Would it really make sense for you to be the business owner and then be at the cash register taking orders and then running back and making the pizza and then actually getting in your car and then driving and delivering it? No, because all businesses are based on leverage. It is a financial game, a numbers game, and about leverage. So you leverage other people's money in real estate. That's why real estate is so popular, right? And then the second piece is you're leveraging other people's time. There's actually 4 components of leverage, and most people are just trying to do one. So I can say, if I back up, I made all those mistakes, and I came from a real estate family, by the way. That's my original. I was a licensed agent when I turned 18. 1987, so I'm now 52. But I door knocked and cold called, and we had a rental portfolio. Our company was called Boomershine Realtors in the San Francisco Bay Area. So I learned the business, but I didn't want to go down that route originally. So I ended up getting a computer engineering degree, and I took the Silicon Valley path, and I did Silicon Valley, the startups. I did work for the largest technology consulting firm in the world called Accenture. And it was awesome. Learned a lot, but it was 90-hour weeks, and I never saw the sun. I worked in the side of a building, and I got great experience. So it was in 2004, and I think a lot of us come from this world where I had no life. My wife, I had, in 2003, I had 180,000 miles on United Airlines, just on United. And I'd come home. I had two babies. I had a 4-year-old and a 2-month-old. And even when I'd come home, the dogs would bark at me because they didn't recognize me. And my wife and I finally said, this is no life. And we went back to what we knew and burned the bridges. Both of us quit our jobs. We kept our mortgage. Imagine 2004. It was May 17th when I quit my job. And we still had a $700,000 mortgage on our house. That's a lot for Silicon Valley. That was a Silicon Valley house, California, of course. But with a 2-month-old baby, and went cold turkey into real estate. I do not recommend that to anybody, by the way. I actually don't think you should just quit your job and go to full-time real estate. It's not the success formula. But what happened was, and this is the lesson for everybody, is I remanifest. I wanted a new life, but I got stuck in the rut again of doing everything myself. But now, and I hated working for somebody. I wanted to be my own boss, but now I hated the boss even more because the boss was me. And I didn't understand all these practices. And so, I remanifested what I did before into my own business and became a massive workaholic. And I think that I see that a lot of real estate entrepreneurs. They don't value, they're running so hard that they create another job. A job, again, is just over broke. So it's really understanding what real estate can do for us. And that really didn't happen until about 2014 or 2015. And so I went from 2004, successful businesses, but I was a workaholic for 10 years. I was kind of like gone. My wife was like, not only did I have my real estate business, but I also was building realestateinvestor.com. So I had multiple businesses going on. And so to back up, the big lesson is there's really 3 buckets that people should be focused on in real estate. There's cash now, there's cash flow, and then there's cash later. And every single deal that comes in should be looked at in those 3 buckets. Because everybody's so focused on, I'm just a wholesaler, or I'm just a fix and flip guy, or I'm just apartment. Real estate is just a financial game. It's a method to give us lifelong wealth, right? So I learned this long ago from a good friend of mine. He said, keep the best, sell the rest. That was actually David Dodge. I was in a mastermind in Tulum, and I'm like, I'm going to coin that, and I'll tell everybody that came from you, Dave. But I've been following that now for really 4 years. Keep the best, sell the rest. And when you're looking at a deal, cash now is wholesaling, fix and flip, even a listing. It's a one-time transaction. You do a bunch of work and you get paid once. And that's great, but that's a job. And you never will actually get anywhere ultimately doing that. You'll be a workaholic, and especially with real estate cycles, most people I've seen get wiped out at some point. The cash flow is passive income. And how do you get that? That's going to be some rental income of having somebody else pay the mortgage and you're getting a spread, right? Or lending. And I I love lending, hard money, private money lending, and taking a spread. And I think that's going to even get better as we go into the new cycle of real estate that's upon us. Then cash later is on the hold. Those are the things that were basically appreciation and somebody else paying the mortgage down. And so we need to focus. Every transaction should be looked at that way. So for instance, we may do 10 deals, okay? I'm not going to say 10 deals a month or 10 deals a year. I'm just going to say 10 deals. Realistically, we may say, hey, 7 of these or 6 of these, I'm going to take the cash now because I need it for operating capital to fund my life and fund these different things. But I'm going to also pick up the best and keep them for the cash flow and the cash later. And it's not a numbers game. People can do this. I know people I got a good buddy of mine. He does 4 deals a year. That's all he focuses on. And he works probably 2 hours, 3 days a week. So so that was a lesson. I will say the other thing is that this again came years later after making the mistakes, but King Solomon out of the Bible, right out of Proverbs, in Deuteronomy and other places, but he basically said, nothing's new under the sun. Real estate, don't reinvent the wheel. Everything has been invented. So I tried to go and do it all myself and figure it out. No, find somebody that already has figured it out, that's in the current market, and replicate what they do, right? Get coaching from them. Just follow them and allow them to mentor you. And then once you've perfected it, then you can make it better. And so many people, especially things like marketing, right? We're real estate investors. The money is in making offers and talking to people, right? Building buyers and raising money. That is all we should truly be doing. So a lot of people spend all their time trying to find the little fairy dust perfect postcard or the perfect little software widget. I'm just telling you, that's chasing unicorns and rainbows and fairy dust. What you want to do is just find what already works, write somebody a check to get it done so that you can actually do the money-making things. I mean, that's why I built realestateinvestor.com so that we could actually, it was really kind of like, hey, all of us are real estate people. Why are we spending all this time doing all the marketing, right? It's a lot of $10 an hour work. Just, we should be doing $1,000 an hour work. And that's actually how we get leverage and scale and freedom. So,
no, definitely.
So anyway, it took 10 years for me, man. It took 10 years, Brett, and everybody for me to figure that out. And it was really probably at a point of desperation. Sometimes you have to be at a point of desperation where I was like, let's
talk about that. You see, you mentioned a point of desperation, and you also mentioned your wife a couple of times because you go back to like, my wife said that why are we living like this? And so talk to us about that. What was that moment like? That desperate moment where you're like, man, something's gotta shift. It's gotta change here.
Yeah, well, this started in actually 2009, late 2008. I was about 60 pounds heavier than I am now. And I had a very successful business. It was probably the best year. 2008 was actually the best year coming into the absolute crash. But I was working probably 70-hour weeks. So I finally hired a CEO coach. His name's Willie Hook. He's my CEO coach to this very day. We call him Yoda. He says he's Yoda man, but Willie doesn't say much. But I basically called him into my office and said, Willie, I'm a CEO. I'm making money. I'm just miserable. And he basically asked me some questions. And then he said, Gary, he goes, here's what I can tell you about yourself. You don't know how to deal with free time. So you're an entrepreneur. Most of us are entrepreneurs. And he goes, you're always thinking and you're always a busy brain. So that was a huge, and he goes, here's what I'm going to have you do. He goes, where do you spend all your time? I told him it's this stupid cell phone. And we looked at the phone and he said, I want you to look at the amount of time that you're on your phone this last month. It was like 40 hours of the month just on the phone myself. So he said, here's what I want you to do. I want you to take a sabbatical right now. He goes, I want you to call your employees in and I want you to take 6 weeks off and pass the whole business over to them. He goes, the inmates will run the asylum because, you're doing everything and you got a bunch of people that are like looking up to you, but let them be accountable and let them figure it out. And he goes, during that time, I'm going to challenge you to go do things. be thinking of business. I want you to go get a trainer, right? Go get some exercise, go read the Bible, go do whatever you want to do. And I will tell you, it was a life changer. That was a pivotal point. And then the transition was another couple of years over that. But I have taken a sabbatical every year ever since. And I would share that to all of us CEOs, entrepreneurs, that there's a great quote. It says, if your mess is your message. So if you're a mess as a CEO, your business is going to be a mess too. And so you've got to be crystal clear, and you have to be healthy as a CEO so that your organization and your business is healthy. And the other thing is, it's not just about the money. There's actually three kind of very important things for all of us that I've learned. And the self-awareness is around, there's wealth, there's health, and there's relationships. And when you have one it's really just like the Trinity. I mean, it's the three concentric circles of wealth, health, and relationships. So you can have one that's really good. You can be making a lot of money and you're going through a divorce and your kids are a disaster. You could be super healthy, but your wealth is completely disastrous and your relationships are terrible. And when I say relationships, it's relationships with our family, our kids, our spouse, our partners, with God, right? The source, and ourselves. And so really getting clear that those are the three things, and all of them need to be healthy. And any one of them that's out of sync, it's a disaster. And so it was really kind of going through that journey and then standing back and saying, I'm going to start with, what do I want my life to look like first? Because if I build what my life is going to look like, then the rest of the organization can flow with it. Because if you don't, your business will define you, and then we become a slave to the business. And I've seen that 100% of the time for everybody I've met. We go to a lot of seminars, Brett. We listen to podcasts, and we might see some person out there, some iconic person that you look up to. And I can tell you, if you look behind the scenes, there's a lot of disaster. It's really when people have really focused on getting those three things. Because there is a lot of smoke and mirrors, right? You look at Hollywood and you look at how many people have tons of money or sports figures, and then the rest of their life is a disaster. So really getting crystal clear on our why: wealth, health, and relationships. I'm constantly going in and rating on a scale of 1 to 10, where am I in each of those three rings? And I have a whole process of how I go through that. And we can talk about that. I call it my 6Fs. But the other thing I want to share with
I just want to ask you about the sabbatical real quick, because obviously that's a great thing. And so you probably haven't ever really taken a sabbatical up to this point. He said take 6 weeks off. And did you do that? And what was that like? I mean, and what did you do?
I lost a ton of weight. I went and got a trainer. I couldn't take my computer or my phone. I had to leave it with the staff. So I didn't have a computer or the phone. People couldn't even call me. I was completely offline. Even on the bank accounts, like, how do people get in, and like passwords and things? And Willie's like, let them figure it out. It was the first time where I saw the people that really in my organization wanted to stay and loved what they do and believed in the vision, is when things came together. So I had a philosophy that I could never find people to work for me that would be as accountable to me and that would work and run through walls. And I will tell you that is absolutely a lie. That is Satan's lie to each of us, the great deceiver. When I changed and had a clear vision, when you have a vision for your personal life and then the vision for the business, and you share that with your team and you build values and core values and structure, and you allow people to excel, people flourish. It's like a garden. You can't just go and drop seed on the ground and expect anything to grow. You've got to till it and you have to water it. And people are really our most valuable resource in a business. So as we're growing a business, and it's just like your kids, it's like your family. We have to constantly work. And so I had to stand back. And during those 6 weeks, I put together my perfect day. I said, what was my perfect day? Also, what am I uniquely gifted at? Like, what am I good at? And because all of us have different gifts, right? The gift of the spirit, it's their spiritual gifts. And so I think when you stand back, it's like, what am I really gifted at? And then what am I not? I have a little exercise in that text message that I gave everybody. There's a little exercise called my 4 quadrants. Very simple exercise of getting super crystal clear on what you're good at, and then how you need to hire other better people to go do those things. So when you find what you're gifted at, you're uniquely qualified at, and then what you're passionate about, and you can get those things together in unison, there's magic. Mm-hmm. There's wonderful, and I hate using the word magic because I'm not a magic believer, but you know what I'm saying. And I even tell with my kids, a lot of us, I think part of it, Brett, is that why it's so hard for us entrepreneurs to do this is because we've been indoctrinated from day one into this slave system of being a cog in the wheel, making somebody else rich. Our whole system is that. So we have to basically break those bondages of slavery. And it really does start with having crystal clear of what your vision is. And by the way, this is fun. It's a fun exercise. It's usually you go on a walk, you go up and you get out of your office and you spend some quality time. I journal and walk and hike. And so that's what I did during my 6 weeks. I just got back last week from part of my sabbatical. I go every year, I actually go fly fishing. So I just got back from Montana for a week of fly fishing in beautiful Montana. And last year I ended up going by myself to Maui. So I went for 11 days to Maui. We own a house, we just sold it, but owned a place in Maui on the beach. And I literally went by myself for my sabbatical. My wife actually laughs. She says, do you realize how hard it is for me telling my friends that my wife and my husband went to Maui for 11 days? But she fully supported, because I go over there. It's a cleansing process. It allows my team to elevate. Mm-hmm. It allows me to get crystal clear and recalibrate. And so I do that every year because, again, you have to be healthy as a CEO or an entrepreneur for the rest of your business. It's almost like an airplane. Think of an airplane when it goes through turbulence. And it's turbulence, right? And the oxygen masks come down. Who puts on the oxygen first? The parents do, the adults do, before they put it on the kids. So we have to actually be healthy ourselves. And again, I think it starts with having a crystal clear personal vision, followed by a business vision, usually just a couple of pages. It's usually a lot of fun. And then you execute. So you have to actually then go do some of the work. And it's not about hours, but it's about the quality of time. Mm-hmm. And I'll give everybody one more. I know everybody calls me the nutty professor because it's like, I know that there's probably copious notes and people are like, oh my God, my head's exploding. But I haven't invented any of this. So I've just listened to other wise people. Mm-hmm. I actually start with wise people like King Solomon. If we go to Proverbs, I'm reading Proverbs 15, 16, and 17 right now, with where I'm at in my own journey. And there's so much wisdom, right? The book of Proverbs is the book of wisdom.
I always find it, and even before you get on that, I always find it really interesting because I find it fascinating reading books, especially the Bible, but other books that were written tens or hundreds or thousands of years ago, and we're dealing with the same things today that they were. I just find that fascinating.
Absolutely. And so why reinvent the wheel? Let's just go find what works and replicate it. And so, and so I haven't invented any of these. This is another thing that has changed my life. I have a 5-10-3 rule, right? I used to have massive issues with my time management. I basically worked all day, 10, 12 hours a day, and dealing with email and posting, dealing with the social media stuff and taking people's phone calls. And then all the important things got put to the end, and then I did them at night, and my family sacrificed. And I came to Willie, my CEO coach, and told him, Willie, I'm struggling. And he goes, Gary, think of super successful people that you know. Warren Buffett. I would say Bill Gates, but I'm not a Bill Gates fan anymore. I find him very creepy. We won't go down that rabbit hole. But let's say Steve Jobs or Jack Welch, right? When Jack Welch was alive, who ran General Electric. All these guys, everybody has the same 24 hours. But look what they're able to do, and look what we're able to do. And so what happened was I created this thing called my 5-10-3. So here's how it works. I actually wake up at 5 in the morning. I used to wake up because I'd go to bed 2-3 o'clock in the morning. So I now go to bed early. And I wake up at 5, and I don't start. I'm off limits to anybody on my team until 10 a.m. Okay. And I take those 5 hours, and those are my 5 hours. And so I journal, I read scripture, I do the family things. I always make coffee and clean the dishes and get the kitchen clean and some of the family responsibilities. I'm extremely well blessed off of that. And then I go work out, and I go to the gym and get some quality time. Now, during those 5 hours, I'm writing down my one thing. What is the one thing that I'm going to do today as a CEO to move the marker in my business? And when you get good, you might be able to do 2 or 3. It's a book Gary Keller, who built Keller Williams, wrote the one thing. And then the 3. So 5, I wake up. 10, I'm off limits, so it gives me 5 hours. I come up with my one thing, and then the 3 are the 3 hours that I'm going to be a CEO doing CEO quality work during the day. And I do that first to move the marker, and then I have unlimited amounts of time. And I know between about 10 and 1 or 11 and 2 is my superpower time. I'm usually the best. So that's when I do my CEO work. And then the rest of the day is almost play, but it is work. I'm an entrepreneur. I love building stuff. I have 3 businesses. And so a lot of people are like, you only work 3 hours? I'm like, no, I only work 3 hours as a CEO. Those are the hours that I focus on moving the marker in my business. Now, given the fact that I have such little time, I'm leveraging and learning how to leverage other people, because I used to do all the work myself. Now, with only 3 hours, I have to delegate. And that's actually a lot easier than most people make it. I always thought most of us entrepreneurs are terrible delegators. Maybe we're good leaders, but not good managers. But you have to, in that time, I'm always thinking of what outcome I want. So I'm not thinking about the step 1, 2, 3. You know, I'll give you the analogy. If I want lunch and I want somebody to serve me lunch, right? I'm not telling somebody go to the refrigerator and pull out 2 pieces of bread and put the peanut butter this way and telling them step by step by step. I'm just saying, hey, I want a really tasty lunch. I kind of feel like this, and I want it served at 1:30 or 1 o'clock, and let them figure it out, right? So I'm always thinking about the outcome and having clarity of thought, and then I pass that over, and I can usually do that on my cell phone. So I operate very little as a CEO with my actual computer, because I've learned that I have to delegate and really, leverage other people. And the money is made on leveraging. You can take a $10 an hour person, right? If you pay them $10, even $20 an hour. And I actually have a little exercise and it's actually in the free gift, where I show somebody that if they just hired, as an example, an inside salesperson to do the phone work for $10 an hour, they could actually earn 16 weeks of their life back. Actually, I take that at 12 weeks. Imagine having 12 and a half weeks of your life back and still get a massive return on investment on that resource. So, but most people will still hear this and they'll do it on their own. So you've got to be focused. I always tell people, don't try to save pennies and nickels that are costing you $100 and $1,000 bills. You want to leverage people. That is the most valuable part of building a business.
No, I love it, Gary. Thanks so much for just the wisdom behind all of this. The things that I'm getting, guys, is number one, I hear a coach. I keep hearing that CEO coach, have someone be a guide with you on this, and delegate, time. The other thing I've been hearing is time blocking, which I think is really, really important. But more than just time blocking is that you get your important things done first, right? I think that I even do this too, is as soon as you open up your phone or social media or email, it's like your day is just kind of, well, there it just went, right? So you kind of don't even do that, right? You don't even go there pretty much. You get your important things done before you. When do you do the urgent things, I guess is what I call them, where you do the phone or the emails? Do you have a time blocked out for that?
Okay, it's a great question. So it's actually a quadrant exercise. So there's the urgent and the important, and then there's the there's important, not important, urgent, not urgent. Mm-hmm. And I never am working in the urgent quadrant. I'm always working on the not urgent, important. And how do you do that is most people are always running on fire. And so if you're working, and I've learned if I'm always running from one urgent fire to the next, I need to stand back. That comes down to a little bit of planning. Like what are the 3 or 4 or 5 big priorities? I used to always be in the urgent. It's 4 quadrants. I'm always looking at that. Nothing should actually be urgent. Now, let me talk about the phone. So my phone is, and this came from Coach Willie, because I thought everything was important or urgent when the phone came in. It's like, oh my gosh, a seller is going to call me. Mm-hmm. Here's what I found. My phone has not been, the sound on my phone and the text message has not been on since 2013. Okay. It is, and it's always face down, because if I text messages, if it takes every time you're interrupted, I think it's 8 psychologically. This is scientifically as well. When we're focused on something and we think we're multitasking, every interruption takes mentally about 8 to 10 minutes to get back on track. Mm-hmm. And so what I found is that, going from your phone to text, right? It's a complete waste of time for everybody. Okay. So what I do is I will go and maybe look at my phone every hour or hour and a half when I'm done with something else. And then I take all the text messages and respond to all of them. Or I'll look at the numbers that came in, and if it's important, I'll leave a voicemail, and then I'll get back to them. And I've never had a problem losing deals because of that. Now, that's what is also called a sales acquisition manager. Mm-hmm. So if I have enough leads in and I can't take them because I'm going to be a CEO, I'm not going to be the sales acquisition guy. I'll just hire that person and let them take all the calls, right? So I'm never working. I do time block. Most of us, I think, especially entrepreneur, visionary types that I am, I always hated the concept of having to have a calendar, and I am relentless on a calendar. I have a full-time executive admin. Oh, she's amazing. Her name's Dablin, overseas, and she does all of my calendar. And so anything, I always just say, hey, go to Dablin, or Dablin has all my email and she'll actually book me. It's probably the best money I spent, because it allows me, again, if we're doing $10 an hour work, we're going to have a $10 bank account. And I want to do $1,000 an hour work so I can have, $1 million bank account.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
No, definitely. No, this is all such great stuff, Gary. I really, really appreciate it. Before we go in the last section of this show, I just have another question for you here. And so we talked about a lot of different things, but I find that most, and maybe you'll disagree, but a lot of entrepreneurs are driven by fear. And sometimes that creates just some chaos in their life. So what are some things that you're seeing other entrepreneurs afraid of? What have you been afraid of, especially as you become successful? Because some people think that when you do become successful, when you have wealth or a lot of money, that the fears will go away. You won't be afraid anymore. Do you find that to be the case? Or let's talk about fear a little bit.
Yeah, I think fear is first off, fear, a lot of us have heard it, but it's never really resonated. It really resonates for me, and I'm going to talk about it. But fear is false evidence appearing real. The acronym, false evidence appearing real. Fear comes from the enemy, and we are told, I think it's either 1st or 2nd Timothy 1:17, that says we are not to have a spirit of fear, but in love. And I think that actually we want to exude love over fear and be fighting that and in prayer. Yes, I had a lot of fear. I know that there's a lot of people that do, and I do think that that is one of the things that leads to pride and ego, and pride always goes before the fall. I see that as fear could be massively destructive. A lot of people feel like they're fumed and energized on the fear, but I have never seen it actually really result in blossom, having life and financial freedom. My fear was fear of being loved and fear of failure. Those were my two things, of being liked. And so I can say today, fast forward again, this is probably really all kind of came together for me in 2013. But when I was preparing for this, and you asked a few of the questions, one being fear, I don't operate in a state of fear. And if I ever do, I go and get myself into quiet time and prayer time, because it doesn't blossom any fruit. I think instead you focus on, fear. I did this years ago. Again, this is in 2013. Fear and anger. On the left-hand side, I basically said it's all Satan. It's all leads to death. And love and abundance and thanks and gratitude leads to life and to God. And so, this was a 2013. I won't go into how it all happened, but whenever I had the things on the left side of fear and anger and bitterness and regret, I would realize I need to look at the opposite. And so instead, I'm thankful for being here and in life, and thankful for family, right? And thankful for health. A lot of us, Rob Swanson, good friend of mine, he actually had he almost died a couple of times. He's a very well-known guy. He actually runs Freedom Soft, but he shared something that he said, most people are broke people or not rich people have 1,000 dreams, but an unhealthy person just has one. That's for their health. And so I really took that to heart. So I find when I am focusing on helping other people and focusing on the sellers, focus on solving a problem for the seller, not just buying their house. I'll focus on helping a client or somebody on my staff. I've got 100 people on the team, and I love getting on the phone. I actually helped a family overseas in India. It was a gift that we could do for them. And so I find that I'm always blessed, and it gets me away from fear and into love. And I'll add one last thing to it. Along with fear is things like scarcity, and having a scarcity mentality, especially in this business. It is, again, leads to death. The opposite is abundance. I want to explain that to everybody. A lot of people have scarcity, they don't want to share and train somebody or hire somebody because they feel like they're going to learn everything and then be a competitor. And that is a fallacy, because you can't control that. And I've never seen anybody successful doing it. Instead, it's abundance. So instead of, for me, instead of hiring somebody as a salesperson and say, hey, you're going to be a salesperson and here's what you're going to get paid, I'm going to call them a profit sharing partner, right? And when I hire somebody, it's hey, ultimately, there is no glass ceiling in my business. So you might have the opportunity to ultimately take over this business someday for me. And then I would just get a payout, right? Passive income. And then I can go and let's say I'm in a market like Indianapolis, or I'm in a market like, California, whatever it is, and I get somebody really good, they ultimately run the business. I get a check, and then I can go into another business or another market or go into apartments. And that's actually called scale. So scale and leverage. So fear and all these things lead to death and not happiness, and abundance and love are life. And
I love it, Gary.
That's not didn't come from me, by the way. Again, I wish I was the wise person that's purely for making mistakes.
No, man, it's total wisdom. And yes, we never reinvent the wheel. This is all just from very wise people. Gary, one last question. So if there's a young entrepreneur out there, let's say 31 years old, young, hungry, driven, wants to make a lot of money, entrepreneur, what's your advice? Someone that's, I think you said you're 52 now. So what's your advice to that 30-year-old?
Well, one is make sure that you get a copy of the Freedom Code that comes out, my book, because I think if everything I've shared here times 10,000 of all these lessons are in that book, along with, on all the different business practices of this business. The second thing is stand back, take some time, and get crystal clear on the why and the what before the how. Everybody jumps in to learn how to fix, wholesale a deal or what have you. Get crystal clear on what it is that you want. You want to work 80-hour weeks, or do you want to be sitting on the beach quickly? Because you can actually get to where you want a lot faster. And there's a lot of people that do this progression from, I'm going to start the wholesale, and then I'm going to go to fix and flip, and then I'm going to go to apartments, and then ultimately lending. And I've seen almost nobody ever do that progression. You can do it all day one if you're crystal clear on the what and the why. I would also say a lot of people, when they're getting in this business, they spend all their time chasing rainbows. They're getting a lot of coaching. They're getting they're educating themselves. And here's the reality: education without implementation is just expensive entertainment. This business takes work. There's no silver bullet. There is no little push button. There's push button. You can definitely get systems and CRM today that we didn't have 10 years ago to do things, but you can't automate talking to people. So real estate is a relationship business, and you can automate almost everything else, but you can't automate that. And if you can't do it and you're not really great, I have a sales course that's built for this that you can actually get through realestateinvestor.com. It's a solution selling course and compression coaching to get people to overcome some of that fear and how to build a relationship with sellers. Because I think most people do it wrong. I want to stand back real quick. Every business, there's a sale that happens. And sales does not start until there's a rejection. So a lot of people, most men, are fearful of rejection. They're looking for motivated leads, and they'll do direct mail and things, and then they're like, oh, nobody's motivated. They'll come up with all the excuses. No. At the end of the day, there is no such thing as a motivated seller. You have to build a relationship. You have to establish trust, and then you have to come up with a solution to the seller's pain. That's called solution selling. Most people just go in and they get on the phone once, they make an offer, and then they move on and say, oh, these sellers suck and the leads suck and my market's too competitive. And that's not true. You're deceiving yourself, because you have to build a relationship. You have to establish some trust, and then you have to come up with a solution to the seller's problem. And sales people are not born, they're made. Yes, any executive, CEO in any Fortune 500,000 company or VP of sales in any organization, it is a discipline. It's a numbers game followed by there's the art, and then there's the science. The science being it's a numbers game. Like, how many leads does it take to get enough qualified leads to get a deal, and how many times do you have to interact with the seller? And the art is being able to ask questions, build trust, right? Active listening, and coming up with a solution, not just throwing some crappy lowball offer at the seller on the first conversation and expect it stick. It doesn't work that way.
Definitely. Great advice. Guys, go check out realestateinvestor.com with Gary Boomershine and his team, and make sure you do the text messaging to the number, which, Gary, it was 975
925 320 0575.
Awesome.
And,
we'll put that in the description too.
Yeah. The last thing I'd leave everybody with, it's Henry Ford has a wonderful quote that really resonates for me, and I hope it resonates for all of you. But if you believe you can or you believe you can't, you're right. And I really think that it is, especially right now, we're going to be going through one of the biggest transfers of wealth in our history right now. A lot of people are like, oh my God, COVID and all this stuff. No, if you're doing the right things and preparing and pivoting and then working to profit, we're going to see an incredible opportunity in this coming market. So that's, again, going from fear to what's in front of us, which could be incredibly awesome.
Definitely. Sounds good, Gary. Well, Gary, I always like to end every show with a little bit of fun, and this is called Gary the Genius. You said you're not a genius and you don't have a lot of wisdom, but I believe you do. This show has been filled with wisdom. So I have 5 questions for you, and these answers are typically 60 seconds or less. So these are short answers. Okay? All right, number 1. Okay. So what do you think is going to happen with cryptocurrency?
Well, I'm not a big crypto fan. I think the money and the opportunity is in the blockchain technology that's being built, because we are going to go into a new money system. There is a reset coming. Most people don't even know what that is, but we're going to go into a new electronic currency system, and I think the blockchain is the play. On the Bitcoin, I think one of two things are going to happen. It's either going to go to at least $200,000 or higher, and then a pretty substantial crash, or it's going to go to close to zero. And I'll tell you why. If the power structure basically outlaws it, which has already happened in a few countries, and let's say it's a 10-year jail sentence if you're trading or anybody's like taking crypto because it's against the fiat money system, the Federal Reserve, then the system just goes a pieces. So I don't really play in crypto. I have some, but I think the blockchain technology is the play, because that's where they're going to go with our whole healthcare system, et cetera. So sorry for the long answer.
No, it's all good. No, it's a good answer. All right, number 2, what's the most important thing a real estate investor should do?
Clear on their why and the what before the how, followed by a really good CEO coach from day one. Do it early, somebody that can keep you accountable, and be associated with like-minded people. I like masterminds where you're not the smartest person in the room.
I like it. What book are you reading?
I'm reading right now, or I just finished a book called Halftime, How to Go from Success to Significance. Probably was given by somebody that's been on my staff for a decade, and it's really meaningful. For people that are kind of at the 50-year-old mark and above. And it's just awesome. It's a faith-based book written by a pastor who passed away this last couple of years.
Yeah, I've read that. Is it Bob Buford? 40.
Yeah.
50, yeah, that's a good one. That's awesome. All right, number 4. Will the economy crash, and when?
It already has, just to be clear. Okay. The money system is gone. This is the play out of it. It's already gone. So we are at the very end stage of what's called the euphoric stage of real estate. It's been a 7-year cycle for 100 years. We're at year 13. It's just the final play out. And that's why I think real estate is going to be incredible, massive inflation, but there's going to be a massive change in front of us. And I think it already crashed. So this is just the play out of the final stages. And that's why I do think if we're doing the 3 Ps, you protect, you pivot, and then you profit. And that's what all of us should be doing right now, and being really focused on making sure we keep the best, sell the rest, and be in a balanced portfolio.
Cool. Awesome. All right, last one. What's the smartest thing that you have ever done?
Marrying right. We were put on this planet, on this place, this realm, and it was really, I'm coming up on 27 years. We could have been divorced 50 times, mostly I should say all because of me, but more important than even that is being in unity with your spouse or partner. We are not, I used to make independent decisions. I think you want to be in unity. There's massive blessings. So I actually will run all my hiring decisions with my wife, and I cannot tell you, even if she doesn't know the business, I always get wise counsel. So I would say be in unity with your spouse or your partner.
That's a good thing. My wife and I, we had a disagreement on a decision that we were going to make with our house. And one of my coaches told me that I would rather be on the same page and go in the same direction and fail than to be divided and succeed, one of you, right? So I like that.
It's also biblical. It's biblical. We are to be in unity with our spouse. And I'm highly manipulative. I'm a sales guy, true and true, more than a marketing guy. But I have found that I would manipulate. And instead, sometimes I will just be in prayer and it'll be amazing. I'll ask for wise counsel from above. And all of a sudden, my wife will actually start talking about it. And I didn't even bring it up. So be in unity with your spouse or your partner. Also, I think having a marriage counselor and a marriage mentor in your life, or if in your business with a partner, like get a traction EOS coach as soon as you can if you're partnered. But that's been life-changing for us.
Yeah, definitely. Sounds good. Well, thank you so much, Gary, for being on the Brett Snodgrass podcast today. Guys, if you're tuning in, go to the Brett Snodgrass channel. We're going to put everything in the description on the YouTube channel. And go check out realestateinvestor.com and get Gary's free gift. So thank you so much, Gary. Appreciate you, man.
Yeah, you too, Brett, and everybody else. God bless everybody.
Thank you so much for checking out the Brett Snodgrass channel. If you like this video, please slam on that like button. And if you really like it, then subscribe to our channel here. And remember to leave us a comment below, and I'm going to try my hardest to reply to all the comments. Thank you guys so much. This is why I do what I do. Every single week, I come out with content that focuses on success, freedom, and living out your purpose. Thank you guys so much. See you next time.